Assalamu alaikum and good day, doctor. My name is Rami Yassin, and today I'll be presenting for our project progress part A from our group, which is Ahmed Zaki and Ahmed Razan and Al Walid Uthman. So, for our project, what we created is essentially a CI/CD pipeline that works with the development of a project. It contains the DevOps operation that's used by developers to develop the code. This CI/CD pipeline starts from our code repo, which is GitHub. It's stored in a remote repository in GitHub, and then we use Jira to manage the issues, project management, assign issues to developers, etc., and Jenkins to handle the CI/CD pipeline execution and building up the application, and JMeter to show the performance of that build, how is the execution is going, and then we have Docker Hub in order to create a Docker container and image registry, and finally the process we ended with pulling the application and running it. So for this slides, we'll be explaining about our progress within the project, how we started it, and how we set up everything. And later on, there will be a demo by Al Walid to showcast what we have done. So the beginning is setting up Jira. Jira will act as the place where we manage the project, adding issues to developers to fix, like bugs and features that are needed, and then managing those issues status from new to do, done, and finally in progress. So we created an issue, we added everyone, we created a Jira account, and we created a Jira project, and we invited everyone into that Jira account, and then we created an issue called DevOps 1. Then after that, we set up the GitHub repository. The GitHub repository, remote repository, is where our code lives, and using that repository, all the developers have access to the actual project code. Then they can work in collaboration using version control, basically using branches, and then create a pull request, etc. So this is all for about GitHub and Jira setup. We created the GitHub repository, added our code, and then invited everyone into it as collaborators. And then after that, whenever somebody edits, they can make a git commit, like DevOps 1, add Jenkins, for example, pipelines. This commit, if it starts with DevOps 1.1, it means that later on it will be detected by our pipeline and it will start the execution for our pipeline.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Azan Akhawarizmi. So I'm going to explain first about the Jenkins environment setup. So this slide is about setting up the Jenkins, which is basically the engine that runs our web pipeline automatically. First, we install Jenkins and run it on localhost port 8080, and then we install all the plugins we needed, like GitHub pipeline, Docker pipeline, and Jira HTML publisher and performance. So each of these lets Jenkins talk to different tools in our workflow. After that, we add a credential for GitHub, Jira Cloud, and Docker Hub. So this part is important because without the credential, Jenkins cannot actually log in to the service or push anything. And then finally, we create a pipeline job and connected it to our GitHub repository. So now Jenkins know exactly which project to build. Basically, after this slide, the Jenkins is fully set up and ready to automate everything. And then jump into the GitHub, webhook, and ngrok. So this slide solve a small problem we run into. So we want Jenkins to run automatically every time we push the code to GitHub. But since our Jenkins is running locally on our machine, so GitHub cannot reach it. So it cannot see the local host from the internet. So we use a tool called ngrok that ngrok does is create a temporary public URL that forward traffic to our local Jenkins. So we run ngrok http 8080. It gives us a public link, and then we paste that link into the GitHub as a webhook URL with /github-webhook/ added at the end. So after this, the flow is automatic. Every time someone pushes code to the GitHub will notify Jenkins through that ngrok URL, and Jenkins start building right away, so no manual checking needed. And next is about Jenkins file pipeline design. So basically, it shows the actual pipeline, which is we define in a file called Jenkins file. The nice thing about this is about the pipeline is written as the code, so it runs exact same every single time. So you can see the stage here. It starts with checkout, where the Jenkins pulls the latest code from GitHub, and then build and verify, where it installs dependency and checks if the apps work. And then it builds a Docker image, runs our JMeter performance test, and push the Docker image to the Docker Hub. And at the bottom, there is a post section that handles what happened after the build, whether it succeeds or fails. For example, it sends the boot status back to the Jira, so our progress is tracked automatically. So the main idea is every time the repository changes, all of these steps run automatically in the same order with no manual works.
Hello, this is Ahmed Zaki Al Jabali. So let's move into the performance validation. So once you have like your app running at its dedicated port, Jenkins triggered an automated load test using like the load test file. Now the raw metrics are saved into a specific file called result.gtl, and then to make this data actionable, we have like an HTML publisher and performance plugins on Jenkins, and it automatically compile these into a clean dashboards, HTML dashboards, and there is like these clean graphs we will see like in a moment directly on like the build page. You can see the image, the screenshot for the test reports. And so if we'll actually like look at some other data on the testing reports, you can see like, as I told you, there are some really cool graphs, and like these are really useful because we can understand the performance of our application. For example, for our application we have like a very good perfect AppDex score of 1, meaning that all of our requests, 100% of them, are met on our like threshold, so which is like I think it's 500 milliseconds. And the green pie chart over there show that there is like no failed requests. So we can get so many insights from here. We can like get to know that in a production pipeline we would set a gate here actually, and the AppDex like if the AppDex were to actually drop or like there is an error suddenly, Jenkins would automatically fail the build and stop the deployment. And moving on to the next part, okay, this is like the Docker image build and push. So actually like let's consider that the performance is verified or like it's already validated. So like, okay, we have got out from the performance validation phase and we have moved to the next phase. Now we want to package the app. So we are going to package the app. We're going to look into our Docker file, and because we're going to use Docker most likely, and we're going to use a lightweight Node 20 Alpine for our base image, which will run on npm CI. It will be able to keep the container minimal and secure. So Jenkins will use its secure credentials system to log into the Docker Hub and safely push the tagged production image without exposing any secrets. Next, we got the Jira updates. So for the Jira updates, actually, it is actually the end of the loop. You automate the team visibility here, because like when you actually do your git commits, you use like the Jira issue key. So there is like DevOps 1, DevOps 2, DevOps 3, or some other things, like whatever you want to name your issue. The point is Jenkins automatically comments on all of the Jira ticket the moment a build starts, and it updates its status and posts a final success confirmation in the Docker Hub link. So this eliminates manual tracking completely. Everything becomes much more smoother, especially teamwork becomes much more smoother. And on the conclusion, I would like to say that these setups deliver a complete automated DevOps loop, spanning plan, code, build, test, deploy, etc. So we basically integrate some very powerful DevOps tool like Jira, GitHub, Jenkins, JMeter, reports, Docker, etc. We have like eliminated the manual friction and ensure that only like performance tested code would reach the production, would reach our end users. And so I will now pass the floor to my teammate Walid. He will be showcasing the live demo for our project. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Al-Walid Athman. I am a member from group codics, and I will be demonstrating the entire workflow of the DevOps assignment, starting with the Jira setup, to the GitHub repository source code explanation, to the Jenkins pipeline setup, and the Docker image and Docker building setup as well. So first of all, we have the Jira, which acts as the management tool. So we have our shared space here where the entire team is inside and can create their own tasks and manage the tasks with status, priority, and different metrics. So here, let's create a new task, for example. We call it like pipeline demo. So our task is created and has the unique ID DevOps 10. And we can see the status still to do. So here, if we go inside of the task, you can see it is empty. And later on, when we run the pipeline, new comments will be sent here automatically through the Jenkins pipeline. For example, like the build started and the build has failed or the build has succeeded. All these different messages and will be sent as comments here. And then um, moving on to the actual source code. So here in the source code, we have the overall structure where we have the Jenkins files, Docker file, and the test files, and the scripts. So the Jenkins files uh, acts as the main file that directs the pipeline and gives the pipeline instructions on what to do. So the the pipeline script gives the pipeline the different stages to run, and which basically checks out the code and builds the application, runs tests automatically, and builds the Docker image and pushes the image to Docker Hub, which always happens in the pipeline by running this script file. And then we have the Docker file, which specify for the Docker on what, for example, information, what port to be on, and so on. And so together, these files allow the project to be built and tested and packaged automatically. Then we have the server test file and the load test. These files are this test file shows the status, returns of the status of the server, uh, and this load test returns the HTML or like shows the HTML representation of the status for the JMeter to show, which I will demonstrate later inside of the Jenkins. And that's it for the source code. Moving on, uh, one more detail inside of the GitHub is that Jenkins runs locally, so there is no way for GitHub and Jenkins to communicate with each other. So that's why I used the Grok webhook. So we ran Grok inside of the Windows PowerShell, and what it does is that it gives a public URL for the local server, so that the local can be used publicly, and this allows GitHub and Jenkins to communicate with each other. And the way that is set up is through the webhooks here in the settings, and here we uh, here we specify the URL that is given to us by Grok, and this allows the GitHub to communicate with the Jenkins by sending to this URL. Okay, and then next we will move on to Jenkins. So Jenkins, the main page shows us a hub for all of our different pipelines and different things that we're running. So mainly now we're running the pipeline here. This is our main pipeline called DevOps assignment pipeline. So this is the configuration. Right? So this is the configuration of the pipeline. So the pipeline is connected to the GitHub repository and to the main branch. So every time um, the branch is a new push happens in the main branch, the Jenkins can automatically detect that push and run the pipeline. And here, as you can see, the script path is set to the Jenkins file. So this acts as the pipeline script. And next, we can test the GitHub and test that the pipeline runs automatically. So now we can simply just push any commit, and the pipeline will automatically run the pipeline script. So when committing, we need to specify the specific issue in Jira that we're targeting for the specific task. So right now we're targeting the task number 10. So we'll write it as we'll write the ID as the first thing in the commit, and we'll press commit, and we'll simply push. Now we can move back to the Jenkins, and as you can see, a new build is happening. The pipeline is being run, and the script is automatically running. So here, as you can see, the run is happening automatically. Whenever a new file is pushed, I'm sorry, whenever a new commit is pushed, the pipeline automatically runs and detects it. As you can see, the different stages are being run here, checking out the code and detecting what Jira issue we're targeting, and building, testing the app, building the Docker image. All of this is happening automatically. So here, when we move back to the Jira, we can see that a new comment is automatically sent saying that the Jenkins build have started. Since we targeted task number 10, this is only sent to task number 10. And also, since we committed for task number 10, you can see that it also moved into in progress status. And now most of the steps have finished, and only the last step, which is pushing the Docker image to the Docker Hub, is left. So next we can see the JMeter. So for this specific build, for this specific pipeline build that just got sent, we can see the JMeter. You can see the different details. You can see the performance index requests. You can see that it's passed, no fails. You can see the statistics, errors, and top 5 errors. And you can see different metrics as well, such as the charts, different charts, responses. You can see all of this inside of the JMeter. And then finally, we'll explain the Docker build. So after testing everything, the pipeline builds the Docker image. So yes, so the pipeline just finished running every single stage. So here, the pipeline tests the app, and after testing the app, making sure everything is okay, it builds the Docker image. And so pretty much the purpose of the Docker is to package everything and make sure everything can run, and makes it so that the application can easily be imported between machines. So by utilizing this, we'll make sure that the application is always stable, that can easily be pulled between machines, and the application can smoothly run between every single machine. So after the Docker image is built here, you can see the commands running the Docker build command automatically, and then the pipeline automatically pushes Docker into the repository hub so that it can be pulled. Here, as you can see, um, the image is automatically pushed into the hub repository, making sure that the hub repository always has the latest and most stable image. So Docker Hub here acts as the remote image repository. Once an image is uploaded, another team member can simply pull the image and run it on their own workstation. So this makes it so that the image is not only created locally, but it is shared through the Docker Hub. So to conclude, we have the workflow starting from the Jira task, where we create a task, and the The task then can the task then is connected to Jenkins and then the Jenkins is connected to the GitHub repository, so that uh, whenever we push, Jenkins automatically runs the pipeline script and runs the pipeline, which runs the different stages, uh, which involves building, testing the app, building the Docker image, and pushing the Docker image, and as well as sending message to Jira and updating Jira, and overall uh, creating complete workflow of DevOps, of automation, continuous delivery and integration through Jenkins by running the pipeline. And this demonstrates how DevOps improves collaboration between project tracking, development, testing, and deployment as well. And that's all for our workflow. Thank you for watching.